YouTubers, Belinda. You're watching Fight the Good Fight. Today I wanted to talk to y'all, or actually read to y'all, something that I wrote with my experience with a narcissist. Basically, summarize A from A to Z. All my experiences and my perspective on why they do what they do and why we go through the motions, why we can't let it go, why we can't say goodbye, why we can't have any closure, how they program us, and why, even though it's not for any good reason, actually, for themselves. So I hope you bear with me with the reading. I think it's very informative, and that it will really, really help you to put things into perspective. It really helped me when I wrote it all down, when I got it all out on paper. It helps you when you are able to put things in order. And when you get it out and you get it out on paper, you're able to see it for what it is instead of just, crammed up in there. And, they've rearranged our brains anyway, so it's pretty difficult to deal with, especially when you don't even know what's going on. So anyway, that's what I try to do here and explain what is going on. But what is this hold that they have on us? Why can't we let go? When they ghost us, why do we have such a hard time after everything that they've done to us? They've cheated on us, they've lied, they've turned the tables, they manipulate, they're mean, they yell and cuss at us, they embarrass us, they embarrass us in front of our family, they talk about us, they cross our boundaries. Every time that we let anyone cross over our boundaries, our boundaries, they're what defines us. Our boundaries, it makes us who we are. And it's very important that, people take that lightly, and just allow people to walk all over us and to cross our boundaries because we feel like they're going to think I'm being mean if I don't do this or whatever, And it's what you feel is right. You set those boundaries for a reason, and you should feel more sure of yourself about that. And if you allow this to happen, then basically you are showing that person that you really don't have very much self-respect or dignity. So it's not a matter of being mean or whatever. When they cross our boundaries, imagine it as like a line around us. That's our boundaries. When they cross over it, we get bent out of shape. And it changes us a little bit. We're lenient here and there, and eventually it just becomes to where you don't want to go through the arguing, you don't want to go through the belittling or being cut down, that you're being a B or whatever. And then we become shapeless. We have no form. We have no boundary lines set. We can choose how to look at things. We can choose what perspective to see them at. And if we take that and use it for our good and use it for our benefit, we can learn from that and know what signs to look for. We can choose. We'll have a better judgment of character. that is all if you are not in denial about the situation and you see what happened to you for how it happened. They never loved you from the very beginning. When they were love bombing you, it was to reel you in, to get their hooks in you. But the thing is, here's the kicker: you never loved them either. You were in love with the person or the character that they formed, that they created when they were listening to your every word, when they were studying you and crawled inside your brain and your heart and found out your likes and dislikes and who you're close to in your family and who your friends are and how you feel about them, and then how they feel about you, and then they'll go investigate even further. And this is their ammunition, I guess you'd say. They can and will use it against you. It's the origin. It's what started all of this. But you got in it when you fell in love with that character. You gave that person your heart. Love with the conscience is dedicated, is faithful, is you're gonna stick by that person through good and bad, and trust. You were solid. You made a decision, and then all of a sudden, and for nothing you did, no apparent reason whatsoever, all of a sudden they just reject you and either drop off the face of the earth, or all of a sudden just ream you out and accusing you of things you didn't do, and when you try to deny them, it just gets worse. And that is the worst thing you can do, is deny it. Because if you do, then that would mean that you believe that they believe these things about you, and they don't. They don't even believe that you are that kind of person, or that you're doing those things. They do that for several reasons. It tripped me out first time I really saw it or noticed it. I was like, that's what you do. It was something very obvious. And that's when I knew something was wrong with his brain. How could he think? Sometimes I wonder if they do it on accident, but no, I think it's all for a purpose. For distraction, mainly. So you can't see what they're doing or whatever. But maybe because they're not even creative. Maybe because, that way they're familiar with the story, or with what they're accusing them of or something, because that's who they are. Man, I've been accused of some crazy low life, I've been with a sailor. I've watched some bad movies with bad language, and I've been to bars. I have never heard and imagined nothing what came out of my last narcissist relationship out of his mouth. It was mind-blowing, and to think that that's who he was. Oh my goodness. So anyway, but what I want to say is, and I always say this, but this is my opinion. It's my strong opinion. It's my strong, educated opinion that you will not really. I mean, there's other ways to heal, that you kind of get better or whatever, but I just truly believe that this is the first step that you need to take. in order to begin your process of healing. And the very first thing that you need to do is realize that they never loved you, it was never real, and that what I had to do is just pretend like I was in some kind of fantasy. I was a Cinderella and he was my prince, except he came in the beginning instead of, in the end of the movie. But that he was my prince, and the character that I was in a play with or something, and that I actually that I fell in love with a fictional character. I actually had to do that, and it worked, and it was so heart piercing, the actual realization, but once I got over that, you can't wallow in your pity. You may take a day or whatever. Don't, stay home from work all week and everything and drown in your sorrow and everything. Remember that song, if you're going through hell, keep on moving before the devil gets to know your name, because he'll grab a hold of you. That's what he's trying to do anyway through these narcissists. Any way that he can get a hold of you is fine by him. But he's already got the narcissist. So he basically just uses them as slaves, and the narcissists, they think they know what's going on, and they think that they're doing all of this stuff for their own benefit, but really they're just slaves. I mean, we're all slaves. Let's just get right down to it. It's just a matter of acceptance. Okay, yeah, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, but what, I'm going to work around it, and I'm going to take that and knowledge and use it to base all my decisions on, to base who I want to spend my time with, to base where my boundaries need to be set, and and to be up front and stern. Don't be like, okay, okay, come on, please, okay. No. I set my boundaries for a reason, and that's how I feel. I feel strongly about it, and I'm sorry you're having a hard time accepting that, but those are my boundaries, and I just would like for you to respect them, and I'll respect yours as well. And that's what a relationship is about, is to respect each other's boundaries. That person doesn't want somebody wishy-washy anyway. It's a double-edged sword, really. Whether or not you say no or yes or whatever, if you just don't want a conflict, for whatever the reason is, if you give in to what you already feel is right, and you give in, that's their way in the crack. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gave them a foothold, basically. You let them in to where they can start doing some damage in there. So anyway, talking of metaphors now, but and I want to help. I don't want to think that I went through what I went through in vain. Yes, it is enough that I have learned from it. I did it 3 times in a row when I didn't think I was going to do it, so I don't take it for granted. Don't think that, oh, I got this now, because I did, and I did it again, like Britney Spears, oops, I did it again. I've learned so much, and I want to share that, and I really believe that we all have it in us. If I had it in me, if I was able to get out of the situation, because I was in so deep I was in so much denial. I lost myself. I didn't even know. See, I was always the type of person who I like to, um, leave people laughing and make other people happy and tell jokes, and so outgoing and so carefree. Like, I was so carefree. I was the one that would tell people, God, come on, like that, let's have a good time, and don't worry about that, and I'll help you, we'll work on that tomorrow, whatever the case would be, whatever. But that was my personality, and I totally excluded myself from everybody and everything, and I even ended up losing my job that I had for, it was about eight years. This was in my middle of a relationship. I did it all over again. I moved to a different state to get away from my second narcissist, and he ended up following me down here. But I didn't get back with them. I left with like an $18,000 debt and a couple suitcases and my son in my car, and drove to Louisiana from Texas. And he did all kinds of crazy things to try to get me to come back. And he's like, with a marker on all this, like, stop signs and all the signs on my route home. I can't say his name, but he, loves Belinda forever, and just, oh my gosh. He would call my agency and tell my agency is my parole officer, and that I violated parole, and he needs to know the number where I'm at. They didn't give it to him. But she called me and she told me, your parole officer called and said that you violated your parole. I said, oh my God. That is my crazy ex-boyfriend. She was like, oh girl, don't worry about it. I have one of those too. Thank God. What else did he do? I was on a dating site online, and he went in and he hacked into my dating site, and he changed my profile into that I liked big black men. Yeah. And some other things too that I don't really want to repeat. I better start reading this before it starts going out again. So, anyway, here we go. Okay, this is what they do. The reason narcissism and sociopath abuse is by far the worst psychological abuse one can go through, with the help of spiritual guidance, is because they are able to intricately and gradually strip their victim from reality, common sense, and ultimately, and sometimes permanently, your core, your very soul. And what makes it worse, eventually, you will start to believe that it's all self-inflicted. Anything and everything bad that is happening to you has been your fault. They will convince you and everyone else to think that you did to them what they did to you. At the very least, convince you to believe that that's what they believe. They are the ones that are victimized. Some actually get so into their character that they start believing it themselves. There's no way to really know that for sure, but it sure seemed like it. Boy, they got into their character. I'm sorry, I just was thinking about a moment. He would tell me, because I did not believe him, I was not buying it, and I was not letting him believe that I was buying it, that he was trying to tell me that his business partner screwed him over, when really it was the other way around. I was like, look, don't get offended. I don't trust anybody. It's not just you. And he was like, he was trying to tell me, it hurts, Belinda. It hurts. I'm like, okay. whatever. I mean, he had family that stole more from him than he was claiming this guy stole from him, and it didn't faze him. You know? So I wasn't buying it. Okay, so strippers. They arrogantly come across as they are doing you a favor by putting up with you. Oh, that was a good one. Like, you know, you're lucky to be with me kind of attitude. You are so overwhelmed with confusion that you forget things. You can't make the simplest decisions. You become clumsy. You feel like a failure, and the harder that you try, the worse it gets. You want to prove your love. You want it back the way that it was. But most of all, you want to be understood, because you mean well, and you're not what he's accusing you of. So you defend and you explain. Well, naturally, because you love that person and you want to make it right. You want to save them from any unnecessary misunderstandings or pain by this overwhelming desire to clarify and defend your intentions. This psychological tactic keeps you attached to them and detached from peace, family, friends, etc. Because they know good-hearted people desire to be understood, especially when it might be hurting someone, and a necessity when we think it might be hurting someone that we love. You know, that's one of the stages that they actually go through, is that they want you to, they do things to, they actually want you to believe that you are starting to lose your mind. It is so incredibly sick. Because when you're with a partner, you're doing your best to be a partner, to, you know, be standing up when they're sitting down. You know what I'm saying? Just, you know, you're a team. But when you got somebody right next to you that's supposed to be on your team that is working against you and you don't even know it, that is a nightmare. That is like the worst psychological abuse you could go through. You actually think that this person is there for, and they'll trick you like that too. They'll make they'll make it seem like they're telling you for your own good and your benefit. You know, I'm only telling you this because I care about you, they'll say. You know, you need it, you know, you're kind of losing it, you know, I'm concerned about you. They'll hide your stuff. I mean, I hate looking for things. I really, really do. I feel like it's the biggest waste of time ever. And I can't stand looking for things. And if I didn't see him with my own eyes, out of my peripheral vision, that he took the tacks off of the table and put them in his pocket when I was decorating for my son's birthday party, he was supposed to be there helping me. And I played along just to see how far he could take it. He went with it, and he went for about, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And he was like, golly, Belinda, you're always losing stuff. What am I going to do with you? You know, I'll help you look for them, you know. And see, that's what another thing they do. They do so much. They create a problem. They create chaos, drama, and then they come in as your savior and the hero. Like they're coming in to, you know, have to come in. And then they'll kind of act like, you know, see like you need me kind of way, you know. And that I think part of the reason they do it too is for entertainment. But most of the reason why they do it is because they are trying to make you think that you're going crazy. He put the tacks back right where they were, you know, on the table. And he was like, well, here they are, Belinda. I said, what? I looked there. He was like, well, then they would be there, wouldn't they? Which is crazy. Anyway. So, regardless of the fact that he or she has perverted every single good thing that you have done in your life, or the horrific accusations you have had to endure, regardless of your faithfulness that was never acknowledged, you stay. If he or she hasn't accused you, it is so bright out here I can't even see, of cheating, it's coming. If you take too long at the store, or if you get caught behind a car accident, you're screwing someone. Your explanations will be twisted, your goodness will be buried, your hard work for nothing, generosity will be taken advantage of, and your tardiness means you're a prostitute. Regardless of the loss financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, sleep, self-respect, sanity, from any reality sense, to see how off balance this entire relationship has been, well, since they knew that they had you, which was the exact moment they felt you as putty in their hands. They knew it right when you opened yourself up to them. It's probably a romantic evening. I mean, it was with me. But, I mean, it was kind of before that. But they can feel it. They know when. And then that's when they start. That's step one. Step one is to get you all the way. And they're in. And then step two, start rearranging your brain, messing with your mind. It starts off gradual. You live out the perfect night here and there, and they'll throw out a disturbing comment that's ludicrous. This is foreplay for the release of demons itching at the door, wanting to come out and play and feed off of you. This feeling of having to suppress, contain his hidden true emotions seem to erupt in a volcanic manner. You ask yourself, oh my God, what did I do? Where did this come from? This is not him. I'm just going to say him because it's, it's natural for me to say him. But just know that like if, you know what I mean. Okay, I must have brought this on somehow. See, we blame ourselves. So you put in overtime to evaluate yourself. Examine before, during, after the fight, how or if it could have been avoided. By contemplating what you could have said or did that would have made any difference at all. You try to make sense out of it with your rational mind, but you will eventually lose that over amount of time. There are many more blindsided eruptions to come. Get ready. From this point to the end, all the way, throughout the whole time, you will be confused. And you will be in the state of mind to work diligently for the way that it was in the beginning. That's like the carrot in front of the horse. Just, yeah. So, you want it so bad that you actually believe it will be worth all the hell that you are going through. Unaware of the reason of the extreme highs and lows, or because the higher that you are lifted, the harder the fall. The pureness and innocence in this case is your worst enemy because you're naive. You don't see what's happening. God said my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I like that because, I don't like that, but I like the scripture because people just think that they can just blindly live through this life and be naive and live in their little bubble and just everything will be okay. Meanwhile, you're being totally taken advantage of. You're seeing it. You're looking at it dead in his face. And you won't see it for what it is, because that would mean that you would have to admit that it's a lie. You would have to see it for what it was. That would mean that they never loved you. And that is just too much to bear. So if you discard it and continue to sleep with your enemy, who feeds off your anguish and takes pleasure in watching you squirm. We are to be wise as serpents, but gentle as lambs. Well, how does that work? When I become wise as a serpent, how will I remain gentle? And knowingly accept the cold truth that I gave everything I had, everything I worked for years and years to acquire. The cold truth that I gave everything I had, everything, my good reputation that I was a stable person, a good sense of judgment, a righteous and respected boundaries. I even lost my good credit to make it almost impossible to start over. How will this truth not leave me bitter? That's a really good question. The answer: just put a portion of the faith that you had in your narcissistic relationship to God. Or should I say, your time. Or whatever. Instead of sitting in the corner crying, or, wallowing in your pity, or arguing, or, you can refuse to argue. It's possible. It does take two to argue, but I do know about being followed from room to room and just the buttons pushed to push to push until you explode. I know about that. But I wished I knew what I know now. It would have been a lot easier to remain calm, because if you see it for what it is, you're arguing about something that's not even in existence. You're wasting your time. It is the biggest, it's more waste of time than looking for something that you can't find. I still can't get over the time that I wasted arguing over something that he never even believed to begin with. That's regretful. Brought this on somehow. See, we blame ourselves. So you put in overtime to evaluate yourself. Examine before, during, after the fight, how or if it could have been avoided. By contemplating what you could have said or did that would make any difference at all. You try to make sense out of it with your rational mind, but you will eventually lose that over amount of time. There are many more blindsided eruptions to come. Get ready. From this point to the end, all the way, throughout the whole time, you will be confused. And you will be in the state of mind to work diligently for the way that it was in the beginning. That's like the carrot in front of the horse. Just, yeah. So, you want it so bad that you actually believe it will be worth all the hell that you are going through. Unaware of the reason of the extreme highs and lows, were because the higher that you are lifted, the harder the fall. The pureness and innocence in this case is your worst enemy, because you're naive. You don't see what's happening. God said my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I like that because, I don't like that, but I like the scripture because people just think that they can just blindly live through this life and be naive and live in their little bubble and just everything will be okay. Meanwhile, you're being totally taken advantage of. You're seeing it. You're looking at it dead in its face. And you won't see it for what it is, because that would mean that you would have to admit that it's a lie. You would have to see it for what it was. That would mean that they never loved you. And that is just too much to bear. So if you discard it and continue to sleep with your enemy, who feeds off your anguish and takes pleasure in watching you squirm. We are to be wise as serpents, but gentle as lambs. Well, how does that work? When I become wise as a serpent, How will I remain gentle and knowingly accept the cold truth that I gave everything I had, everything I worked for years and years to acquire? The cold truth that I gave everything I had, everything, my good reputation that I was a stable person, a good sense of judgment, a righteous and respected boundaries. I even lost my good credit. To make it almost impossible to start over. How will this truth not leave me bitter? And that's a really good question. The answer? Just put a portion of the faith that you had in your narcissistic relationship to God. Or should I say your time? Or whatever, instead of sitting in the corner crying or, wallowing in your pity or arguing or, you can refuse to argue. It's possible. It does take two to argue, but I do know about being followed from room to room and just the buttons pushed to push to push until you explode. I know about that. But I wished I knew what I know now. It would have been a lot easier to remain calm, because if you see it for what it is,